I've gotten a lot of people asking me about my own struggles with stage fright and how I overcame them. And I thought instead of just sending emails, I'll go ahead and just make a video and then everyone can go and see and check it out for themselves. So here's my journey with stage fright. And I kind of had an odd one because I kind of came into stand-up comedy backwards. I started out in 6th grade as an improvisational comedian. And then by the time I was in high school, I was already getting these paid gigs in improvisational comedy. So I felt very good and very comfortable in front of the stage if I didn't know what I was about to say. But when I segued from improvisational comedy into stand-up comedy, I started writing these scripts. And then for the first time in my life, I started getting afraid when I was going to go on stage. And the reason was because now there was something to compare it to. Now I knew exactly what I needed to say. I knew exactly how I wanted to say it. And there were all these moving pieces that had to be perfect. You know, I was being a perfectionist, so I was making sure that everything was ready to go. And there was so much stress involved in all of that my heart would be pounding. And several times early on, and actually I'd say more than several, but early on, there were several shows where I went up to the booker and I said, hey, you know, do you have anybody else? Because I need to run and go do something. Like I actually tried to bail several times in my career. So I was definitely very, very nervous early on. And it was my belief that in order to get over stage fright, I should practice more. So I should get more and more repetitions, listen to my comedy, go over my comedy more and more. And the more times I do it, the more I'll be able to just ramble it off. And I came up with this weird system where I would spend X amount of time preparing and rehearsing for the show, and per minute of the show. So with 1 minute of material, I would probably practice it for maybe 10 or 15 minutes or so, and probably a lot more early on. But the point is that I had this system that I thought would work, where I would practice it so much, and I would record myself, and I would play it back in my ears, in my earbuds. Play it in my ears. I played it in my earbuds while I was walking down the street or going to the store or whatever. So I was listening over and over again, and I could repeat that bit, in my sleep. I went over it so many times, and yet the stage fright stayed with me, and I couldn't understand why for the longest time, until I finally started, letting go of some of that control on stage and getting back to that authentic me, that person that was in 6th grade that jumped on stage and didn't quite know exactly what he was doing, but just started having tons of fun doing it. And once I started doing that, then my stage fright started to just disappear. And the way I got to doing that, so it's very easy for me to say, well, get out of your head. You're going to go, oh, okay, that helps, thanks a lot. But the way you do that, the actual step you take in order to get out of your own head, is you concentrate on the story. You concentrate on telling that story to the audience. All right, so when I'm on stage, I do not think about myself at all. Like, I don't exist. I am only thinking about the same way that when you're with your friends, you're thinking about, telling your friends the story. If you're with your friends and you're having a great time and you're telling a really funny story to your friends, you don't really think about yourself at all. Like, the idea of you kind of vanishes. And what's left is your complete focus on giving your friends this experience, giving them this laughter. And that's what you want to be. That's what you want to do when you're on stage. Instead of sitting there on stage and saying, okay, there's so many ways I can screw up. Instead of saying, okay, I'm going to concentrate on all these words, you just think about the story. And the crazy thing is, you will mess up less if you concentrate on the story than if you practice every single word. The more you practice all the words, the more stress you're going to get, because there's more for you to screw up. So instead of doing that, concentrate on the story. Because here's the truth. You've been telling stories your entire life, all right? Well, not your entire life, but for a large majority of it. Your brain knows how to tell a story. You don't need to practice some story again and again and again in order to tell your friends it. You just think about what happened, you start telling your friends, and yet it's still funny. And yet the words still come out either perfectly or near perfectly. That's where you want to be on stage. The more you practice, the more mechanical you're going to start becoming. You're going to sound like every word that is in your material is being told to the audience like this. Instead of just saying, okay, like I have no script in the back of my head, I'm just going to start talking, I'm going to start telling you what's important. It's a completely different feeling. So if you are like, take this video for example. Right now I am talking directly to you. I'm not using a script in the back of my head, and it's probably very apparent to you that I'm not doing that. But if I was sitting here with my notes and I was saying, okay, gotta do this. Okay, so let's talk about how you get out of your head. And then automatically, you know I'm in my head. You know I'm not actually thinking about you. And it's much harder for you to actually be engaged in what I'm talking about. So there's so many aspects to this, because first off, when you get out of your head, there's no stage fright. But also the quality of your performances just drastically increases. And it feels that's kind of counterintuitive. Because I was such a perfectionist that I wouldn't allow myself to try to just jump on stage and throw it on stage, because it was too important. The problem was that I never got into stand-up comedy as a hobby. I wanted to be the best. And when that happened, my standards of what a show must be increased drastically. And yet my ability was still, I was still a novice. And it created this huge amount of stress, because I knew for a fact that I would not be able to live up to the expectations that I'd already built for myself. So instead of trying to, what I tried to do early on was just keep building my skill. I said, okay, here are my standards. I need to build my skill up. But the problem wasn't that I had these high standards, or that I was trying to solve them by building up my skill. But the problem isn't in either of these. All right, it doesn't matter if I build up my skill. This is going to increase anyway. Or if I increase or decrease my my expectations, then that's not really what I want to be doing either. The answer is neither. The answer is being outside of your head, being completely present with the audience. All of your mistakes, all of everything that entails is what you need to be doing. So yes, when you jump on stage and you haven't gone over your material hundreds of times, yes, when you jump on stage, you concentrate on the story. Sometimes you're going to flip a word around. You're going to say one phrase before you say another. But none of that really matters in the long run, because you're going to get so much more from being authentic and being real and being out of your head than you will ever lose from having perfect word placement or perfect voice inflection for your punchline. There's no way that is such a great deal for you. Always be focusing on the audience. Always be thinking up. Don't be in the back. So I'll leave you with a fun exercise, and you can decide whether or not that if you're far enough in your career, then I would suggest trying it. If you're brand new, then I probably would leave this exercise alone for the time being. But what I started doing is for 1 month, like I always have these monthly challenges that just kind of build some kind of a skill. But for 1 month, I refused to think about anything in my material until the moment I was actually holding the microphone on stage. So I would not plan exactly what I was going to say. I would not be thinking about, oh, will this joke work? Will that joke work? None of that. The first time I actually thought about the performance was when I was actually performing. And it was very difficult at first. The first, maybe week or so, I would tell myself I wasn't going to do it, but then I kind of catch myself doing it at the same time, and I have to stop and say, no, don't do that. Just go do something fun. Go have fun right now, because you're not going to be on stage for another 10 minutes or so. So I eventually got better and better at that, though, to where I could be having a great time, laughing with everyone in the green room, and then I hear my name called, and then just walk directly on stage, take the mic out of the mic stand, and just start crushing it. And the weird thing is, you would think that would be, you would think that the person that's obsessing about their material would be the one that has, the best chance when they're on stage of getting that laugh. And to some level, that's true. If you're talking about your, the actual quality of your material, then yes, the person that's obsessing about their material is going to have very tight material. But if you're talking about the actual performance, it's the person that's the most authentic that is going to have the best set. And in order to be authentic, you actually need to be outside of your head. So try doing this exercise for maybe 1 month or so, or maybe just a couple of shows. Pick a very low-key show, pick some kind of open mic, and just see what happens if you actually start having fun before you're on stage, and then take that fun on stage, and then think about what you want to say to the audience.